wish everything was easy and smooth, and you just click the button and you could just talk to people face to face. But it's not a thing, not yet, anyways. But you're writing about that future.
Yeah.
Um, you were in the most recent Strange New Worlds book, which unfortunately was in 2016.
That is
Um,
correct.
what was your story in that book?
The story is called The Sunwalkers, and it is a next gen story that follows Beverly Crusher. It's situated in season 7, right after Wesley leaves with the Traveler.
Hmm.
And so it follows Beverly's reaction to her son departing the ship while she's in the middle of trying to solve a medical crisis on a planet. So Beverly Crusher is one of my favorite Star Trek characters. And so I wanted to explore that because I feel like she didn't really get enough emotional space in the show. You know, they're trying to wrap up an entire series, and I wanted to give her the space to sort of deal with that.
So, how'd you feel about Picard, the
The
series?
show,
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I have criticisms, but I did really like getting to see a lot of the next gen characters on screen again and together and solving problems.
Yes, it does seem like Crusher is getting her time in both on screen and in fiction, because she was a big part of Dayton Ward's recent book, and she was in I think it was a Cassandra Rose Clark wrote a novel that she was like the lead on a one of the two or three stories that were happening in that book. So resurgence for the Doctor, not the Doctor, but the Doctor that we're talking about. Um, so the whole reason that I'm doing these interviews, and I think you're the seventh or eighth one that I've done so far, is that you guys have been to shore leave a whole bunch. This is my very first one, which I'm told is like it's a good starting time to start going to them because it's in a brand new spot. And everyone's going to be like trying to find their feet instead of just little old me trying to be the new guy in the group. Uh, and I wanted to get everyone's impressions of the show itself and find out what their history is with the show. So, how long have you been going to shore leave?
I have been attending shore leave since 2017, which is the year after that Star Trek Strange New Worlds publication came out.
Hmm.
Um, and I found out about it through my fellow Strange New Worlds author, Derek Tyler Attico. He and I are very good friends. We've collaborated on a lot of Trek related stuff and game writing stuff. And I met him at Star Trek Mission New York, which was a CBS sponsored convention for the 50th anniversary of Star Trek in 2016. And I found him. I was like, hey, we're both in this book together. And he sort of gave me the rundown of, well, you're a Star Trek writer now. Here's things you should know about. And Shore Leave was one of the things that he told me about that is a convention worth going to for a lot of reasons, but especially since it is the gathering of all of the Star Trek tie-in writers. This is kind of the place that they all tend to congregate. You know, we see each other elsewhere, you know, at different conventions, but we all try to come to this one because it's a really great convention for a lot of reasons.
Right. So you got to go to three or four of them before the world melted down for a little bit.
Yep,
Were you able to participate in the virtual one that they held a couple years ago?
I did.
And how did that go?
Yes, so I was impressed with how well all the conventions pivoted to being online, and it was a highlight for me in lockdown to be able to still talk with people about things that I care about and see friends, and so they handled it really well.
That's great to hear. I don't believe I was able to attend any of the virtual stuff that they had. Do you know if they're doing virtual stuff again this year, or or have they gone completely to real world?
I think they've switched back completely to in-person events, but I don't know that for certain.
And have you gotten your program put together for this year?
I have. We were just sent that a few days ago, and I think I'm on 6 panels,
Ooh.
which is a good number for me. And some of them I'm really excited about. One of them is on the Marvels, so I get to talk about Carol Danvers, who's the subject of my new book that's coming out, which I'm really excited about. And there's a panel about writer brain versus editor brain. And I think one on collaboration. So, like, how do you collaborate with another author?
Hmm.
A lot of fun stuff going on.
Yeah, I actually just spoke with Dayton Ward 2 days ago, and he was talking about how that the Marvel Declassified, I believe it's called,
Yep.
how that series got started, and that he just had a book come out, and that you were the next one up to have one that's coming out there. Which I do have to say, the characters that have already come out, I know a ton about. Like, I know everything there is to know about Iron Man, Black Panther, like Captain America. Like, those are all like I know those characters so much. I don't
Yeah.
know very much about Carol Danvers, and that's been a blessing for the MCU stuff, because I'm like, well, it's a blank slate. I don't know anything about her, so whatever they put on the screen, that's canon to me. But I've read a whole bunch of issues with her in them, from
Mhm.
like the Marvel puts out those True Believer issues where they're like $1 for the character's first appearance or a interesting storyline or something like that. Uh, how are you bringing together like everything that's happened to her to one storyline or one look?
Yeah, it was a challenge. Carol is a very deep character in the comics canon. She was introduced in, I think, 1968 in Marvel Superheroes number 13, where she's a security agent, security officer at NASA. And then she went on to have her own Ms. Marvel series and starting in 1977, and then was a long running character, part of the Avengers, kind of part of the X-Men, heads up multiple teams, Alpha Flight, the Ultimates, etc. And so there was so much content, and she really has had like at least half a dozen full careers
Hmm.
as a person in the world, and gone through multiple identity crises and having to sort of reinvent herself. And so it was a challenge to find the through line
Hmm.
of what is the thing that pulls through Carol's life that sort of unifies all of these events and experiences and things. And so that was kind of the interesting, challenging part of it. And it's kind of structured around a series of interviews with a whole lot of supporting documents that I also got to create, which was really fun. So, yeah, I had a blast writing it. I already loved the character, and respect her even more after having gone through everything with a fine tooth comb.
Right. I actually haven't spoken to anyone about building comic book stories. How closely are you working with whoever the artist is on this? Is it a single artist, or are you using archival art from previous issues?
We are mostly using archival art. So I was invited by the publisher to basically select art from the comics. So I got to say, this picture of this person here, I want to pull that so we can recreate their badge for NASA or whatever.
Right.
Or take this picture and make a little magazine article out of it or whatever. And so I have an editor at Ben Bella, the publisher, whose job it is to actually pull those files. But I got to like point to them and say it would be really cool to have this in something that looks kind of like this. And then we have a graphic designer, who's obviously going to do all the actual layout on the pages.
How soon is that coming out?
That is coming out in March of 2025. And pre-orders are available now, but the actual book is going to release in March.
Exciting times.
I know
Now,
it's
I'm,
super fun to
yeah,
work
you
for
said you're doing
Marvel.
a panel on the Marvels. Is that directly related to the movie, or is this more in regards to just like the Marvel characters within Captain Marvel's comic book history?
This is the panel's kind of focused on Carol Danvers, but in light of the fact that the Marvels movie just came out within the last year, so we haven't got a chance to do a panel about it yet. So we're going to talk about Carol Danvers in the film, specifically that film, but also kind of compare with her character in the comics. So it'll be a pretty broad conversation across the Marvelverse.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. I don't think they've released the program yet to the public. So watching everyone's author websites, I'm like piecing together like where I'm going to be throughout the whole thing. And a few authors have mentioned that this is going to be kind of like selecting your college courses, and that you're going to have to like prioritize one over the other, right? Um,
Yeah, shore leave never has a lack of good programming. Like, there's always plenty to do and plenty to see and great conversations happening.
so one of the other books that I have on my site, and I don't have the book, I just have the cover and then like pointer data on it on there, is the Women Take the Con series set of essays. Can you talk about your content in that book?
Yeah, this was a super fun project to work on. So the idea for the book was a series of essays, one per female character in Star Trek: The Original Series. So we each got to sort of choose, and all by women writers. So I asked to do Dr. Miranda Jones, who only appears in one episode, and she's the ambassador slash scientist who is assigned to an ambassador. Who, if you look at him, Ambassador Kolos, supposedly like humans will go mad, and she kind of has this working relationship with Spock, and Spock ends up looking at the ambassador and kind of going crazy. And it comes out that she is blind, and she has made this very intricate sensor web dress that she wears that allows her to essentially move through the world without any hindrances. And so my essay kind of unpacks how we should interpret her character arc, or one way to interpret her character arc that I think is interesting and runs counter to the way that I usually hear her talked about. So it was really fun to go back and rewatch the episode several times, go read all the other scholarship that's out there about, who she is and what she's about, but also dig into like some of the production history and how the actress played the part and that sort of thing, and to think more broadly about how women are portrayed within Star Trek, since that's something that I care a lot about.
So is this a one-off book, or do you think there's going to be a series like in this vein, not necessarily like just ladies talk about ladies, but like of essay collections that you're going to participate in?
I would love to do more of these from the specific publisher. I have done lots of essays in the past on various Trek related themes and content. There's a series called Outside In from ATB Publishing that has put out a wide number of anthologies where there's one essay per episode for a series. So like there's a TOS book, there's a TNG book, um, and those are a little more broad. Like the Women Take the Con book is more kind of almost academic style essays, critical essays, and the Outside In books, the contributors kind of have a wide open invitation to, you could do an essay, you could like write a script or a poem, or like any sort of interpretive genre that is a response to the episode that illuminates something interesting about it. So those books were fun. But yeah, I would love to see more from Becky Books, is the publisher that did Women Take the Con. And I took a bunch of copies of that book to the Origins Game Fair and sold out on like day two. So it's a very popular volume.
Yeah, it's not one that I see in bookstores, but it's one that's like been on my radar since it was announced, and I'm like, maybe I should pre-order it. Maybe I should order it from Amazon, or and then a thousand things happen and I don't have the book yet. But if you have a copy at Shore Leave, I'm sure you'll be selling those, selling out of
I
those
will.
as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I only have a few left, but yeah, I'm bringing them to Charlie.
so you mentioned that you were at a game con recently, which I only have a single Modifist book with your name attached to it, but they're not as like author forward with their books. So I usually reach out to them and I ask them, hey, who do you have in this book? What are the ISBN numbers? What are the page links? That kind of stuff, and they usually get the information back to me. But can you tell me about your experiences working on both Modifus's Star Trek content and any other gaming content that you're working on.
Yeah, so Modifius has the license for the Star Trek role playing games, Star Trek Adventures, and they put out some really great content. I really like their system. Their game system is called 2D20, and it's a very easy system to learn. And they are launching, I believe, at Gen Con this year. They're launching the second edition of the game. And
Mm.
so they've sort of simplified combat and made it even easier to play. I thought it was pretty easy before, but it's even better now. So I've had the pleasure of working on a couple of books. The first one was the Clan Core Rulebook, where they took all of the core rules for the game and basically put Klingon theme on it and just saturated that book with as much Klingon culture as we could. And so I got to write what are called sidebars, which are little chunks of fictionalized content uh, from the from the Star Trek universe that a GM, a game master, could pick up and pull into a game as a piece of ephemera or to read off or whatever. And so I got to go back through and watch a bunch of episodes that were, Cleon related, and that was super fun. And then I was invited to be one of the lead writers on the Shackleton Expanse campaign guide, which the whole point of that book was to like let's carve out an area of the Star Trek map that is unexplored, and let's populate it with some new worlds, some new species, some and a really cool overarching plot that has it's a campaign, so there's like linked adventures that you can kind of play through, but all of these new species that we came up with are playable, and so people can actually make characters that are like this. And Jim Johnson, the line editor, really encouraged us to think outside the box because we're not limited by a production budget the way the show is. And so he was like, make non-humanoid species, make stuff that would be hard to like put on in a show, but like we're not limited by that in a game. So my species are called the Calmirans, and they're like crystalline entities that are like telepathic, and they can kind of see through time. And it was so fun to do that project. So there was a group of us that were the lead writers on that. We kind of all collaborated to make sure that we were creating a whole that was sort of cohesive and made sense. Um, so that was super fun. And then I've just been involved in other projects. I wrote all the mission briefs for the Star Trek Discovery book. So if you look at the mission briefs that are like the outline for a campaign or for an adventure, um, I had a blast writing those. So it's really been fun to work on this game.
Have you tried the single player version of the game yet?
I haven't. I own it, but I haven't played it yet. I just finished my master's degree in creative writing, like in May, and so I was.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I had very limited time. I was doing that at the same time I was writing the Marvel book, and so I was like, I don't have a whole lot of free time, but I look forward to playing it. My good friend Michael Dismuke was the lead writer on that, and I've heard that it's awesome from everyone who's played it.
Right. Unfortunately, in my town, we don't have enough crossover between Star Trek fans and RPG fans to have like a solid like group of people to play with. So when I heard they were doing like a single player version of it, I was like, do I want to lose myself to this type of thing? Because I could easily just do that. And if I don't videotape it or put it on YouTube or Twitch or something, then that's just going to be hours and hours of my life that I'm enjoying. But what productive thing did I do out of that?
I don't
So
know. Sometimes it's fun just to have fun.
this is true. When the goal is fun, right? You mentioned conventions a few times, and watching your social media, you definitely get out to a lot of conventions and shows. How many shows and panels are you doing every year?
It was more pre-COVID, and also pre-grad school. My decision to go to grad school constricted both my travel budget and how often I could get away. But I would say pretty reliably, like at least 3 conventions a year, and up to like 5 in person. If you count all the like virtual appearances, then it's more. I was able to do FireCon does something called Firelight, which is like a master class writing workshop thing online. I was able to participate in that. I used to be a regular at Farpoint, which is also in Baltimore, but it's in February, and so I wasn't able to do that while I was in grad school. But we'll see. Maybe I'll be able to return to that one. I've done PhilCon before when it was virtual, and that was an excellent convention, one of the most organized I've ever been a part of, and I'd love to go in person at some point. I am usually a guest at Gen Con. I really enjoy that one. And I'm now a regular at the Origins Game Fair, which is in Columbus, Ohio. That is an excellent convention. If you like gaming, definitely check that one out. And yeah, some others. I've gone to Confusion in Michigan because I'm originally from Michigan. And I'm probably forgetting others, but those are the ones that are kind of standing out at the moment.
Yeah, the convention circuit is well attended, I guess.
Oh, Worldcon. When it is somewhere that I can get to it.
Right.
But obviously it moves around, so it kind of depends.
So what you said going back to school has curtailed your experiences at these conventions, right? At least your free time. What drove your desire to go back for a master's degree?
Yeah, so I was a high school English and journalism teacher for 8 years in Michigan, and I really enjoyed it. And I ran an after school creative writing club there with my high school students, and I started like doing creative writing on a pretty regular basis. And then I got that. I submitted that Star Trek story to the Strange New Worlds contest and won, and then my writing career just kind of started taking off like
Hmm.
pretty consistently. I started doing more and more contracted projects and got invited to do things, and um, trying to manage my author career while doing full-time classroom teaching, I got to a point where I was like, okay, if I'm going to take my writing career to the next level, I'm going to have to find a way to invest more time and energy into it. And so I decided that applying for a fully funded graduate program that would give me 3 years to write and to work on a novel was kind of the next step that I needed to take in order to invest in that. And so that's what I did. It was hard to leave teaching because I really enjoyed it. But my students were like, Misfits, you tell us to follow our dreams. Like, you need to go follow yours. And I was like, okay. So when I was accepted to Iowa State University with it's a fully funded program, but they also gave me a fellowship and some other awards and stuff. It was a great opportunity. I was like, okay, I'm gonna write a novel, and I didn't know I would be writing two novels because the program requires you to write an original fiction novel if you're in fiction as your essentially as your master's thesis. And then I got the Marvel book contract at the same time. So my final year of grad school, I was writing two novels, which was insane. But I did do it, and I completed them both. And so um, it was a good decision career wise, but it definitely was sort of a leap of faith of like I'm going to decide that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this writing career work.
That's amazing. That is such a great story. And you said you just graduated like in the last couple
Yeah,
months?
I did. Yep, in May.
Wow. That's pretty intense. So, what are you doing with all your free time now is the question.
Yeah, so I took the summer as sort of some much needed vacation. So I went on a hiking trip to the Canadian Rockies with some friends, and we hiked for 10 days. It was amazing. And doing my conventions. And I went to the Launchpad Astronomy Workshop for sci-fi writers in Laramie, Wyoming, which was like a week-long crash course on astronomy for sci-fi writers. Um, and generally just kind of enjoying writing whatever I want to and reading whatever I want to, and having as much fun outside as possible because I was basically in front of a laptop for for the last 12 months writing these 2 books. But I'm gearing up to start a new job. I was hired at the university to work for the honors program here, so I'll get to be working with students and mentoring them on their future.
That's an exciting move.
Mhm.
I had a somewhat similar set of circumstances, although it's a lower level of education because the employer that I worked for sold the company to a company that was in diametrically just like separate part of the country, and
Mm,
we knew that we were eventually going to be asked to start working in one of the offices, and with no office 500 miles within 500 miles of us, I was like, well, I'm eventually going to lose this job, so what do I need to do to protect myself and get ready for that eventuality? And it was going back and getting a bachelor's degree and staying in the same industry but changing like the focus of it. And the uh, the month after graduation was it was a listless one where I was like, I've got a list of like 1,000 things that I want to do, but I kind of want to just like stare at the wall for a second and like see what it's like to be inactive for a minute.
it is absolutely necessary to like recharge after doing a degree. Like I had a blast with my degree. I know some people sort of struggle with grad school. I really enjoyed it, but it is intense. There are times that it is a struggle. So
Yeah. So, was the 2016 Star Trek book your first publication ever, or were you published before that?
no, that was my first publication, which was kind of like trial by fire because, I was a huge Star Trek fan, and I'd always kind of been a writer, and maybe for several years I thought about, well, maybe I can get something published, and to have like my very first publication be an officially licensed Star Trek fiction product was just like so mind blowing. But it also meant that I went from having zero experience with the publishing industry to working with editors at Simon and Schuster, like overnight. And so I was just like, do you quickly get up to speed of what this is? And thankfully, I had some really great people sort of help me. And I took the initiative to reach out, to go to some of these events and meet communities of people who are really supportive. The Star Trek writing world is a very supportive, encouraging place.
Right, you had the bona fides. Get out there and act like a published Star Trek author. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so, have you had a non tie-in book published yet? Something of your own original uh, creation?
Not yet. That is my next goal.
Okay.
So I am currently working on revising the science fiction novel that I wrote as my master's thesis. I've got to make some changes to it, particularly make it a little bit longer so that it's industry standard length. And then my goal will be to submit that to literary agents with the goal of getting it traditionally published while working on, more books after that. So yeah, that is something I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk to other authors and see what their path was, because you have people that like much like you, they do like two or three stories that are connected to tie-ins to a bigger licensed media, and then they write their own thing. And then you have authors like Greg Cox, who I think went 30 years without writing his own story, which I think he said he's got one that maybe soon is coming out.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
he is getting involved in original fiction now, but they're kind of different. Like tie-in writing and original fiction share a lot of craft, meaning like they both require character development and plot development and all these things, but like the way that you get those things published is very different. Like the
mhm.
path to publication is different. And so a lot of people do one or the other. Um, but like I think there's a sweet spot if you can do both. Because it's really fun to play with IPs and universes that you love. Um, but there's also like as a creator, sometimes you just want to build your own world and you want to play with your own characters and have complete freedom over what you're doing.
Right. So I saw that you were promoting the I'm forgetting the title of it, but it was a Western Stories collection. Uh, do you have a story in there, or okay? So would that be considered an original story then? So you
Yep.
got your original story, just not novel length.
Oh yeah, I have a ton of original short fiction out there.
Okay.
I don't know what the actual number is, but it's upwards of a dozen to 20, short fiction pieces published in various spots. Some of those are literary fiction. A lot of them are sci-fi, cyberpunk, space western. This one is just western. That's coming out from Silverado Press. It's an anthology they're doing a Kickstarter for, that is kind of traditional Western with a variety of authors. And I'm going to be writing with a female lead. And my historical event that I'm writing about is the founding of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona in 1894. So tiny little connection to space and astronomy because I'm me. But it's meant to be a realistic Western fiction story.
So is that the next published thing that's coming out for you, or is there anything between now and then?
So, Bain Books has an anthology called Last Train out of Kepler. I'm going to get the number wrong, 283B or something like that. And it's space western short fiction, and I have a story in that. Um, and let's see, is there anything else coming out before then? I don't think so. Uh, that might be the Origins anthology just came out at the convention, um, with all the authors there. I had a story in that one. Um, so yeah, if the Silverado Press one funds, then I'll have a piece in that. Um, so yeah.
So there, I can't remember who I spoke to that mentioned it, but they were talking about the funding for specifically through Patreon, that they weren't sure about westerns on Patreon. Have you been a part of that conversation about the concerns of that, or is that something that's happened with just them?
I am kind of new to the Western space. The space Western I did for Bain was kind of my first foray into that, and then that story led to me getting invited to this other one. Um, so uh, I don't know the history of this specific genre. I know that, like, the Western genre for a long time was paperbacks, the little paperbacks that all my students loved uh, when I was a high school teacher. So I think maybe it's a genre that has not traditionally had a huge digital footprint, and so maybe that's what the conversation is about. But I don't know. We'll see. There's still a whole lot of people who like the Western vibe, and I consider, like, Star Wars is a space Western. Firefly is a space Western. Like, there's a lot of popular media that has a Western vibe to it, whether people kind of realize that or not. So yeah, there's still a lot of folks who like that.
And are you doing any work with Crazy Eight Press?
Yes, they had an anthology called Thrilling Adventure Yarns, and I was in their 2022, 21. It might have been 21. I should know this. I was in one of their anthologies that I had a cyberpunk story in, and they're fantastic to work with. They have some of the best editing and layout I've ever seen from an anthology. So every time I get a chance to work with them, I do.
Okay, and to bring it back to the original topic here, like I said, this is my first shore leave. I've been to a few conventions in my life, but as a veteran, or I'm sorry, a veteran convention goer, what would you suggest for someone like me that's never been to a shore leave? Like, what's your one suggestion to me?
Go to Meet the Pros, which is usually on Friday night, very late. I think traditionally it's like 9 to midnight or something like that, or 10 to midnight. Um, But all the authors will be lined up at our own tables with our books, very eager to talk to everyone. And so it's a great chance to meet all of us and kind of get a lay of the land of like who you want to seek out the rest of the convention, to go to panels or find us in the hallway or find us in the bar or whatever. You kind of get to chat with us. And so also, Shore Leave has a science track. And so the Hubble Space Telescope folks are there. I had the privilege of writing for them for a while, and they're just fantastic. And they usually give some talks at Shore Leave that are just mind blowing with amazing imagery. And so definitely find the science track, find the astronomy people, find the NASA folks. They're worth talking to.
And what kind of content were you writing for them?
I got to do a fieldwork experience where I did some science writing for their website.
Oh, wow.
So I wrote a couple of articles about the Hubble Space Telescope. One of them was about the mirror flaw on Hubble, and the other was about imaging. So, like how they take raw data from the telescope and turn it into the beautiful color photos that we all know and love.
That is fantastic. I had no idea they had so many science people coming until they made the announcement that the Hubble team was going to be there. Then, of course, they're like, and look at all these other scientists we have. And it's a very large group of people that I really look forward to hearing from when I'm down there.
Yeah, and they have really high quality panels. Like I've learned so much about telescopes and NASA's missions and things just from attending these panels. But they're usually packed standing room only, so get there early.
I definitely will. Once they published, well, should I say, I've already like pieced together like the majority of the program, but there may be a couple surprises in there. But I think it's I'm gonna be getting there. I'm gonna be flying into town, landing around noon. So if everything goes the way it should, I should be able to make it to the meet the pros thing because that seems to be the place to be to meet everyone.
Yeah.
Which I've already set up some comic book deals with a couple authors. They're bringing their backlog with them. I'm gonna be buying books.
See, I always have to like I'll sell books so that I have space in my suitcase to like buy stuff to to
Right.
take back with me.
Yeah, I've got it game planned out where I'm gonna have my big my big as you can get suitcase for like carry on, and then inside that I'm gonna put a collapsible suitcase so that I'll have two suitcases on my way back. We'll see
Nice.
exactly how that goes.
Nice.
Well, I'm out of topics to talk about. Did you have anything that you wanted to touch on before we call it a night?
I will just say that Shore Leave is by far my favorite convention that I go to anywhere. The folks who run it are amazing. I am very grateful to them for providing this opportunity for us to gather, and I can't wait to see everyone.
Well, I will see you in just about a week then.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you get to have this experience, Adam. It's a really, really cool place.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for us tonight then.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I will see you very soon.
All right. Have a great evening.
All right. Bye.